everyone. Welcome to Virtual Vegfest Live, our Thursday edition. This is Helene, and I'm excited. I hope you had a great holiday of Thanksgiving. It was absolutely wonderful on our end because, best food, being with friends and family, and not large friends and family, the people that I live with, so we were safe from the pandemic. And let's say thank you to the Plant Based Network because we are now powered by them. We are part of the Plant Based Network, and to Crafters Organic for sponsoring this week's Virtual Veg Fest Live. They are one of the 4 businesses that donate a monthly prize pack based on whatever contests that we have going on for the month. And we will be announcing how we're going to do our December contest before the end of the week. I promise. It'll be a little different. And of course, I have to pick the winners for November as well. Our Pass the Buck campaign this month is for Triangle Veg Fest. If you don't know, Triangle Veg Fest is a nonprofit that I started in 2014. It's my birthday month, so I'm kind of being a little selfish and saying, please support Triangle Veg Fest in December as kind of like a present to me for my 51st birthday. So today, if you have any questions or comments, remember you can put them into the box and we'll definitely address them. Today we've got Mary and Howard from Fishfield. And there's so much to talk about. It's going to be an abundance of stuff between saving dogs from Korea, fish, in fact, impact on the environment, a children's book, and more. So I'm going to bring them on so you can get to know them and they can tell you who they are. If you haven't seen them, they've been all over the air conferences and Vegfest and events. And this year, it's had an impact. So let's see. Hey, you two, how are you?
Good. Hi, Helene. Thanks for having us.
Oh,
Hi, great to be here.
So Howard, I'm going to have you go first with sharing in between dogs.
Okay, yeah, I am sorry about that. I promise to mute when I'm not speaking. Um, yeah, it's really wonderful to be here. I'm on the board of Fishfield, and that's such an honor. And currently, I'm assisting taking care of dogs at a temporary shelter because I'm volunteering with the Humane Society of the U.S. and they work with Humane Society International, who just brought back a couple hundred dogs from South Korea, where they were initially destined to be eaten. They're at a dog meat farm, and HSI, Humane Society International, was able to work with the farmer to have him, change his business around and close up his farm, his dog farm. And then they brought the animal back here, and they're, socializing them and working to get them healthy, and then placing them with rescue groups who will find them good homes. And they're really wonderful dogs. And I'm just, assisting, taking care of them a little bit. So they are in the background, and so can get a little loud at times. So I'll be muting when I won't talk, when I'm not talking.
That's
But thank you
awesome.
for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. So Mary, you should share about you too.
Well, I am founder of Fishfield, which we started because there was such a glaring lack of interest and concern for fishes, even though they constitute by far the greatest number of abused animals, even within the animal protection community. So we just thought, something needed to be done for them. So we started Fishfield about 5 years ago, and we've, as you said, we've been going around the country, urging people to think about fish and realize that they are sentient beings deserving of respect and compassion. And this year, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, our activities have been very limited, but we're still very active on social media and events like this. So thank you again for having us.
No, I'm really, really glad that you're here because it's important to talk about the impact on the planet and the environment and the animals, as people are very heavy towards health and food, and this kind of will help people understand. Because a lot of times people say something like, oh, I'm pescatarian, I gave up dairy, I gave up red meat, chicken, pork, whatever, but I still eat fish.
Or they'll say I'm vegetarian, but I eat fish.
Well, they're not, but
And
it's okay. So you're
I mean, for
pescatarian.
people to do that for health reasons is just so foolish because I mean, fish is not a healthy product. I mean, of course they should care about the fish for the fish's sake, but to think that it's okay to eat them because they'll be healthier is wrong. I mean, fish has mercury and PCBs and dioxins, and think of all the plastic that's now going into the oceans. A lot of it is absorbed by fish, and then people are eating the fish, so it's not good for them either.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Mercury. I mean, there's many elements. The high cholesterol because it's a high fat food as well is not healthy for your diet. For your, I mean, fat cholesterol leads to heart disease, diabetes, strokes, cancer. I mean, all these things come from when you put things in your body that are not healthy for you.
Exactly, exactly. And you get the argument a lot that, oh, I need my omega threes, and I mean, there's all sorts of non-animal, sources of omega threes. I mean, flaxseed and chia seed and walnuts and hemp seed, and soy. There's all sorts of ways to get omega threes if that's an issue to you. I mean, personally,
Right.
I just have a little of this, a little of that, and it all works together. Keeps me healthy.
Right. And if you want a concentrated dose of omegas, there are algae supplements, which is how fish get their omegas, is through algae. So get it straight from the source instead of going through fish oil, which can easily go rancid. And if it does, it can create free radicals, which are potentially carcinogenic. It can also be contaminated with mercury and heavy metals and other problems that accompany fish consumption. So it's very true, but it's not surprising since government and industry make such a big point of promoting fish consumption, which is really a huge public disservice, not to mention a huge disservice to the animals.
Right. Can you share more about the nonprofit, talk more about Fishville, so people know
Sure.
like what it is and more of what you do?
Sure. Well, we are, like I said, we started about 5 years ago, and mainly we're just trying to get people to realize that fish are sentient beings. They do feel fear and pain, and they are, again, by number, the largest number of abused animals on the planet. It's estimated between 1 and 3 trillion wild caught fish are caught every year, which is just an astronomical figure. And along with those animals are also the animals who are incidentally caught with them: dolphins, millions of dolphins, seals, turtles, whales, birds, and also animals who are intentionally killed because people who fish don't want to be competing with them. Seals are allowed to be shot in places. Birds were just posted recently. We're very active on social media, especially on Facebook, and just posted recently about these birds that are getting caught in the fishing gear, and the fishermen are just amputating their beaks and throwing them back. So, it's really sadistic, just really cruel. And in addition to all these other animals who are caught with them, there's human slavery in the fishing industry. Is rampant in the fishing industry, and a lot of that catch is sold here. It's basically untraceable. So if you're eating seafood, you could easily be eating slave caught seafood. So there are so many issues regarding fish and fishing and fish farming. So, we try to educate people, let them know about fish and how wonderful and amazing animals they are, and why it's not healthy to be eating them, and why it's so harmful to of course, the fish, and to one's own health, and to the environment. So we just really try to be a public education organization. And also, one of the main things we're trying to do is get other animal protection organizations to increase their advocacy for fish.
No, it's important. And David Savage, thank you for watching, just said that you started and they put the website fishfield.org only 5 years ago. You've accomplished so much in 5 years. It's probably due to your efforts, and large national organizations, e.g., Mercy for Animals, have started recognizing and publishing articles that we should care about the fishes.
Well, thank you. And David's been a huge help to us. So thank you very much, David. Yeah, it's terrific.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love when people watch and post comments, especially something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I was an ethical choices educator, and one of the things when we went into the classroom is we would ask, can you hear fish scream? Like, do they feel pain? And the students would just be like, can they talk? Can you hear them? Well, no, they can't scream because they don't have vocal cords, but they have pain. Like when in the children's book, which we'll definitely talk about, right? Underwater Friend, it's very sweet because hooking a fish, literally, and pulling the fish out of the water, the hook goes into the fish and it's harmful. It hurts, and the fish you can't hear a scream because the fish can't scream, but the fish can flop around and be like, "Water, give me water, put me back," or don't do this at all. It's not a fun sport to be stolen from your home, to be thrown into a bucket, to then be thrown back into the ocean, or worse, to be eaten.
Right. It should be so apparent to any reasonable person, just based on fish's behavior, that they are suffering. I mean, if you think about it, they're being impaled in their mouth, and they do have nervous systems throughout their body, including their mouth. Sometimes they're hooked in the eye, the gut, the gill. They can be hooked in all kinds of places, but they're being impaled. Then they're being so-called play the fish, which they're fighting the fish. The fish is fighting for their lives. So you're hauling them through. Hopefully you aren't, but someone is hauling them through the water by a hook through their mouth or wherever, and then they're being suffocated, taken out of the water and suffocated, and then manhandled. They have a protective coating on their body, so when you touch a fish, you're removing that protective coating, so that also harms them. So even if they're put back in the water, and even if they swim away, it doesn't mean they necessarily survive. Many of them perish days or weeks later after lingering in agony. So it's blatant animal abuse is what it is. There's nothing sporting about it.
Yeah, and there have been studies that shown that when fish are subjected to different painful stimuli, they try to avoid that stimuli, avoid that area. And like Mary said, they do have pain receptors in their body and in their mouth, and they do feel the pain. And something else that most people don't think about is that when you hook a fish, you're putting a hole in their mouth. And a lot of different types of fish, they eat by sucking in their food. They get close to their food and suck it in. And you can imagine with a hole in your mouth, sucking in is a lot more difficult than normal. So they don't even get all the food. And a lot of times they go into shock if they're thrown back in, and easy prey for other animals, or just die from the shock and the pain of it all. So there's nothing sporting about it. It's just cruelty.
And there's been many, many studies done to show that fish are sentient, that they do feel fear and pain. They have, pain receptors, as we said. They have natural pain-killers. They react to painful stimuli the way you would expect an animal in pain to react. So, it's really just, you'd have to be in denial to claim that fish don't feel pain anymore. It's just really a matter of ignorance to claim that.
Right. And can you share more about the impact on the environment?
Sure. Well, again, between 1 and 3 trillion fish, it's hard to get an accurate number because the estimates are so wildly ranging, and there's so much illegal fishing going on. They estimate that a third of the catch is illegally caught. So of course those numbers aren't being taken into account. And then so-called recreational fishing, they're not really taking into account those numbers, but it's been estimated that a very conservative estimate that between 1 and 3 trillion fish are taken from the water every year. So you can imagine, since the 1970, I believe, the last 50 years, the aquatic populations have been halved. So we're just really desertifying the oceans. We're wiping out the oceans. When you take all these animals out, there are other animals who are dependent on them for food. So you're taking away their food source. The fish, I actually just posted about this recently, yesterday. They, when you're taking these animals out of the water, they have a fair amount of their body as carbon. So the oceans are a big carbon sink. They collect a lot of carbon, which keeps it out of our atmosphere. And when you're taking all these fish out, you're bringing this carbon out into the atmosphere. And so we've been removing millions and millions of tons of carbon, bringing it up out of the oceans and putting it out into the atmosphere when you went from fishing. But also, again, you're taking away the food source from the animals and the people. There are people who genuinely do need to eat fish, so you're taking away their food source. So you're affecting all those animals. And a lot of people are saying that the solution is fish farming, but that's really a big part of the problem, actually, because most of the farmed fish are carnivorous. So you're taking wild caught fish to feed them. A huge number of the wild caught fish are used as feed for farmed fishes, farmed pigs, farmed chickens. and so you're also promoting those industries, and now it's, because there's fewer fishes in the ocean, ships are having to go out further and further to catch them. So they're also using a lot of fuel and putting that into the environment. So, fishing is really a huge environmental drain.
And also, just one other comment, trying to jump in between dog barks, is a lot of the nets from fishermen. I mean, fishermen's nets, they could be literally miles long, or long lines with thousands of hooks, and they often get lost at sea. So they're just like garbage out there floating around, constantly catching all the wildlife. I mean, these poor animals, like you all the time see and hear about stories of somebody saving a dolphin with a net around or something. And thank God, but that's one animal that we hear about. I can't imagine how many millions are out there that are constantly being caught and slowly dying in these nets that are just adrift in the seas. There's just so much waste. And as Mary was saying about fish farming, how bad it is, a lot of like the waste from fish farms, or like a lot of the fish farms that the fish have lice all over them, which is terrible. And a lot of this ends up into the open waters, all the whatever chemicals they provide for the fish on the fish farms end up in the open waters. And so, we're just destroying the environment. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's true. What Howard said is true. The uneaten fish food and the feces all collect. I mean, have huge numbers of animals. It's an aquatic factory farm is basically what these fish farms are. So all that uneaten food and feces, whatever, antibiotics, they're really drenching these animals to try to keep them alive. And they're oftentimes heavily infested with sea lice, which they transmit to the wild fish. And also these drugs are going out and chemicals are going out into the water. So, you're really harming the local environment there. And, and again, offer something that's not even helpful for us, not necessary. There are all the nutrients derived from fish and from animal products in general, we can easily get from plant sources. And for people who like seafood, there are vegan versions of virtually any kind of seafood you can imagine, any kind of food you can imagine. It's better for us, better for the other animals, better for the environment. It really just makes sense.
Oh yeah, and I want to give people like a visual when we talk about these nets that get thrown out cast out into the ocean. Yes, you're thinking like a net that's, like you fit in your hands, but we're talking like a net that's cast out like those miles long that literally when they're full, a human can walk on it because it's so full of sea life. And in there, you're right, in there are sea turtles and dolphins and more than just the fish that they were planning on catching, which is the bycatch, right? So what do they do with the bycatch? Because it's not what they're supposed to be catching. And one of the things that I learned that they do with the bycatch was absolutely horrendous, is because it's a business, right? So in a business, you want to make money off of everything, every part of it. So they sell off the bycatch to possibly the cow industry, and our vegetarian cows are eating fish meal from the bycatch, from the fish that you're eating, or whatever you have in your plate, your sushi. Really, if you can put that visual, you can Google it. You can go and look and see pictures of these nets with a person walking on them, and know that in there, one, how many fish have to be in there for a person to be able to walk on it, and two, that those cute dolphins and sea turtles are, sacrificed for an industry that we don't really have to be part of.
Absolutely. And also, what you're saying, think about it. The nets are so full that the fish lower down the net are literally being crushed to death. And a lot of times, the nets come from so deep in the waters that, in the water, as you're coming up, it's a lot of different pressures. And so these animals are all of a sudden being brought up from deep down into the ocean. And I mean, their eyes will pop out. I mean, I don't want to get too gruesome here, but it's just torture, the whole way up. And it's just terrible what they do. And like you said, it's, they'll catch everything. And I mean, every animal matters. But at least to some people, they might not care about fish, but hopefully they'll care about a turtle or a dolphin or a whale. But I mean, every life matters. It's just wrong.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And these nets are they can be miles long. or they also do long lining, which is the long lines with tens of thousands of hooks on them, just catching indiscriminately anyone who happens to come along. And if they get lost, or if they get a hole in, they just throw them away. It's called ghost fishing, where they just continue catching animals. They could do that for years. And eventually these nets are made of plastic. They can last hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds of years. And in the meantime, they're still continuing to catch and kill animals. So it's a huge source of pollution in the waters, plastic pollution, and a huge source of animal death in the oceans.
Right. And David posted something else. So let's add this. So he says, while fish are actually capable of producing quite a variety of nuanced sounds, they make noises that resemble grunts, snorts, hums, hoots, and even a sort of purr. Furthermore, even though not all fish species are capable of producing sounds, all fish can hear. And then he posted a link. David, I really like you. Thank you.
That's right. That's true. That's a very good point, David. Thank you. People say fish need a voice. They do communicate. We just need to listen to what they're trying to convey.
Right, a different way of communication. We don't all communicate the same. Even as humans, we don't all communicate the same. And sometimes It is the body language. And we do know, like, to segue into the children's book, which is pretty neat. So let me say this. An Underwater Friend. Wilma, right? Wilma is the fish in the story. And she came to the surface when she recognized little Timmy, who's going to come and feed her and be there. Like they do. They recognize the people that they see every day, and they will come to the surface, and they won't for someone they don't recognize. And that sounds like a sentient being to me.
That's true. Yes, they've actually done experiments. They can tell, recognize between 40 different faces. And there are fish called Archerfish who catch their prey by shooting a spray of water into the air to knock the insects into the water. And they've had them in laboratories. And for example, if they, and that's a skill that they actually learned, and especially if they can watch other Archerfish, they can, get much better at it. But they've had some of these fish in tanks, and if someone's smoking a cigarette, they'll actually shoot a stream of water and put the cigarette out. I mean, they can be that accurate. So yeah, they can definitely recognize people. Yeah,
that is so cool. So Howard, I would love for you to talk about this children's book, which is really cool for anyone who has kids and you want to explain more about fishing and maybe why playing catch is a better idea than going fishing.
Yeah, there are so many better ideas than going fishing. The story is, as you said, about a boy, Timmy, who goes fishing with his dad for the first time, and he's all excited about it. Mainly he's excited to be spending time with his dad. And after a while, he's getting a little bored, but then they do catch a fish. And when, they bring the fish out of the water, Timmy could tell that this fish is, in distress. She's struggling for her life. She's just totally stressed out, and he feels really bad. So his dad agrees that they could take the fish home and try and take care of her, see if they can, help her out. They actually have a little pond in their backyard, which I guess you can say these things when you're writing a story. And so they do. And, every day, thankfully, Wilma, they named the fish Wilma. Wilma starts getting better and, starts bonding with Timmy. They recognize each other. Timmy's out there each day, spending time with her. And they do become friends. They know each other and they interact with each other, and it's a really nice relationship. And then towards the end, the dad says that, Wilma's doing much better now. We should bring her back to the pond. And thankfully, this is not a pond where many people go, so Wilma would be safe back there. And they bring her back. And they do visit Wilma after that. But like you said, they go and they play catch. I mean, there's so many things you could do. It's you can enjoy time with your dad without harming any animals. It's wonderful. And we had a great illustrator named Jess Henderson. She's from Scotland, and she did a wonderful job illustrating the book. And it's a nice story about, compassion for animals. And actually, that is one of the pages where Timmy realizes that, what his mother's been saying all along about, the golden rule. I'm sorry. Do unto others as you want to be done to you. It's like, you don't want to be treated like that, so why should you treat any animal, any farm animal, a fish, any animal like that? And I better mute again. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and it's such an important book because, increasingly, because actually fishing has been decreasing in popularity. Fewer people have been fishing. Unfortunately, that's changed with the pandemic. More people are going fishing because it's something they can do, in isolation somewhat. But, it had been going down, and to try to get, especially among young people, they're just not that interested in sitting around, fishing. So they've really been promoting it. The government and fishing gear sales industry has been promoting fishing, trying to get kids to go out fishing, which is really such a horrible thing because, you're really encouraging them to torture and abuse and kill animals. It's really promoting animal abuse is what it's doing. So it's such an important book to let people know that, yes, of course, fish are sentient. They do feel fear and pain, and they deserve respect and compassion. And fishing is not a sport. There's nothing sporting about it. The fish are not willing participants. They're victims, and fishing is animal abuse. So it's so important to get that message out to the children and to the adults too.
Yeah, if you start younger, you can plant the seeds and help children understand that there's something else that you can do. I mean, you don't have
So
to
many
do
things.
this. Yes,
Yeah,
and go ahead.
you can go hiking, you can go biking, you can go kayaking, you can just go wading in the water. There's actually something now called magnet fishing where people go fishing with magnets and they pull trash and such and treasure out of the water. So if you want to go fishing, go magnet fishing.
That's so cool.
And this might show my age, but whatever happened to flying a kite? Go out there with dad and fly a kite. I used to like that when I was a kid. Come on, that's fun. That's a good time. Go to the
They,
park.
they still have
So many.
kites, right? You need
Yeah,
wind, but you still have kites.
I
Sure.
think the drugstore sell them. Sure.
Yeah.
That's an awesome suggestion.
And this is actually Howard's third book. He has another book about, he's very involved in disaster preparation. So he has a book called Ready or Not about preparing for your companion animals in the case of emergencies or disasters. And also a book called Scooter Strays about a dog who gets lost. And it's an interactive children's book, and they can pick different options and tells you what will happen if you, depending the consequences, depending on, what you choose to do to help this dog find its way back home.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And
And
now he's working on a fourth book
okay.
about a farm animal sanctuary, Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary in Poolsville, Maryland. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it
awesome. That's,
keeps
Thanks,
busy.
Mary.
it's a good plug. A good couple.
Public service announcement.
Ready or Not and Scooter Strays, other books by Howard. How do people find those books, Howard?
They're on Amazon. Actually, Scooter Strays isn't being distributed right now. I mean, anymore. Like the publisher went out of business, and I think there's a few copies out there. I mean, if somebody really wanted a copy, I've still got like 10 at home. Uh, but besides that, that one's not out. But Ready or Not is on Amazon. Underwater Friend is on Amazon.
Okay,
So
great.
they're out there.
And we
Yeah.
really need to get Scooter Strays reprinted because it is such a great book.
It
Oh,
It
sounds
is.
like
thank,
it. I mean,
It is. Yeah.
yeah, you should totally
thank
do that. I mean, it's not like we don't all have time. It's been a year of having more time available to us. So,
yeah.
and David posted the link to get an underwater friend. So thank you, David, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So we don't actually have to. I don't have
Yeah.
to type it. Thank you.
And also, just one more thing. Jonathan Balcom, who wrote the book What a Fish Knows, which is a really terrific book about how sentient and amazing fishes are. He's also coming out with a children's book about fishing and the problems with fishing. So
Okay,
that's,
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jonathan, I met in New York City at the New York City Vegetarian Festival a number of years ago, and I don't think I've had him come speak, and that's really terrible of me to not know for sure. I typically know who I've had come speak at my events. I feel like it's been no, he has, I think, come to my events. I feel so bad. It's I've had a lot of speakers. So,
Sure,
and
sure.
here is the Amazon link for Underwater Friend. That's just yeah, David, you can come to any talk
Great.
anytime. Thank you. So I'd love to like segue into the dogs because some people who may be showing up are kind of like, what's with the dogs? So I mean, it's really important that we share that too because If you don't know, over in Asia, they eat a lot of different things than we do. And one of the things that they eat is dogs. And it's a really weird thing to uh, try to impress upon somebody that, here's a plate of food. Oh, what is that? It's dog. Oh, ew, but it looks just like if I put a plate of chicken on the table with the legs and the thighs, and it looks very similar. But you'll eat the chicken, but you wouldn't eat the dog, which it, that connection of they're both sentient beings, and you don't need to eat either. But these dogs, Howard, you're part of making sure that they are going to end up with great homes and not as a meal.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right that when it really comes down to it, there's not a difference. It's just culture. We can't imagine eating a dog eating a cat. In other parts of the world, they do, and it's heartbreaking, especially now. I've gotten to know these dogs, and they're wonderful beings. But like Mary mentioned, Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary, you go there, you get to know the chickens and the cows and the pigs and the goats and the lambs and everybody, and they're all wonderful animals with individual personalities. And so it don't boil when boil it down to, oh, it's terrible eating a dog. It's terrible eating any animal, but I mean, it's good. It's like HSI, Humane Society International. They're not just going and getting these dogs. They're changing the way the farmer makes a living. So he's not going to be doing this any longer. They're putting an end to that farm, which is wonderful. And then they're bringing these guys back here because apparently it's not as easy to place a dog in a home in South Korea, like a loving, caring home, and they don't have shelters like we have here. That's my understanding anyway. So they bring them back here, and there's lots of rescue groups. They have a lot of placement partners that anytime, because they do like HSUS and a lot of groups. There's a lot of good groups out there that do animal rescue during cruelty cases and disasters. I mean, ASPCA does a lot of it. It's Group Animal Rescue Corps, Red Rover. There's a lot of wonderful groups that do a lot of temporary sheltering, and they work with placement partners to send the dogs off to either permanent homes or just temporary home fostering. And yeah, these guys, they're wonderful dogs. I mean, just yes, they came from the other end of the world, but they all deserve a reason to have a good life. And I'm so excited that these guys are going to have a good life. All right, what did David say?
He said he's really excited that you're writing a book about Poplar Spring Animal
Oh,
Sanctuary,
thank you. Oh,
and
it's
late.
gonna be great. Actually, I can't take full credit for this book because we every year we have a 5K run for Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary, and as you can imagine, this year it was a virtual run. And on the day of the race, Terry Cummings, who runs Poplar Spring, and Donna Zeigfinger, who's on the race committee, they did a tour, like a virtual tour of the sanctuary. So a lot of the story came from that tour. It's like they would go around and talk about the different animals. It's like, well, why do I want to come up with a whole, book when they just did it? And so I was just, I took from that and then I added to it. And we have a great illustrator for this book too. It's still in the works. So it's going to be wonderful. Yeah, it'll be a top a bestseller. I guarantee it.
Should be.
That's awesome. That's like really cool,
Absolutely.
and of course, it's probably going to raise funds for the sanctuary too, right?
I'm sorry. I actually have some kind of weird noise behind me now.
Oh, that's okay. I said, of course, it's probably going to raise money for the sanctuary too, right?
Oh, of course. Oh, it's bad that I sat quiet for that one. Yes, of course. Yes, yes, definitely. All the proceeds will go to Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary. Just as for an underwater friend, all the proceeds go to Fishfield. And for Scooter Strays, all the proceeds from that went to Washington Humane Society. Um, I guess I got the proceeds from Ready or Not, but
No,
it
you
wasn't
did.
that one. Yes,
Well, that's why you're able to write the other books, because you have to keep
exactly.
going in order to be able to do this.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
That's why David also said thank you for mentioning Jonathan Balcom's book. He was going to mention
Oh,
that.
good.
So What a
Very
Fish
good.
Knows. Thank you, David, for that too.
Yeah, it's a very informative, well written book. We have copies whenever we do actually get to do outreach events. We have copies of Jonathan's book on our table, and you know, a lot of people buy it. You know, it has a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
If you want to know about fish, read What a Fish Knows.
Right, exactly. And he
Yeah.
has a newsletter too that you can
Yeah.
sign up for that he sends almost weekly. I almost feel like it's every other week because I'm, but you can definitely sign up for his newsletter on his site because I
Yeah.
get that. And do you guys have a newsletter?
We do. Yes, you can sign up for ours. If you go to our website in fishfield.org, there's a spot on there you can sign up for the newsletter, and we'd love if people do.
Yeah, I mean it's important to keep up with everything that's going on and to learn. I think this is one of those. I feel like this is one of those topics that people kind of know is out there, but they're just not as educated about it because you've got dogs and cats, then you go into the cows and the chickens and the pigs and the turkeys and the ducks and the geese. And then, you go into, lambs and goats. And then you go into llamas and then you go to birds and then people kind of go, "Oh, fish." Hmm.
Yeah. Which is kind of peculiar because they are actually the most numerous companion animals. Also, there's I think there are more fish companion animals than any other type of animals. So people do get to know them that way and relate to them that way. So there is an interest, but in general, because they live in the water, they're not, we can't observe them so easily. There's been less interest in them, and because they're not mammals, most of the other animals aside from birds are mammalian. So there's also that more more easily to relate to them. But there are so many similarities to us. Fish also have so many similarities to us, and we have a common ancestor we've evolved from. So there's a and they're fascinating animals in their own right too. There's so many. They're they are intelligent animals, very curious, perceptive animals. They interact with other species. They're, for example, in the wild, um, groupers, which are these large fish, are reef animals, and they will go try to capture prey in the coral reefs, but because they're so large, they really can't get inside the coral reefs. So they will go and signal to like a moray eel and gesture to them and inviting them to go hunting with them. And if the moray is receptive, they'll follow them back to the reef. And the moray can get into the reef and either catch the prey themselves or chase the prey out, and then the grouper can catch the prey. But working together, they've been shown to be more successful than working independently. And also, they'll interact that way with octopuses too. So there's interspecies interaction. They pass knowledge from generation to generation, so they have cultural knowledge. Big problem with catching. Usually, when people who fish are looking for the largest fish they can catch, and those fish are usually the older fish who are more knowledgeable, and they pass information like how to get to the better hunting grounds and better habitat and all for migratory routes and such. They pass that on to other the younger fish, learn from them. So when you're taking those older fish out of the water, you're really harming the entire school of fish. So there's so many amazing things about fishes that people, most people are not that familiar with. But once you get to know about them, they're just, as amazing as any other animal, and as lovable as any other animal, and as deserving of respect and compassion as any other animal.
That's fantastic, and thank you for sharing that because there's stuff I learned in what you just said, which is really really cool. That whole grouper story and working with other species to hunt is really fascinating. What are your thoughts on someone having fish as a pet?
Well, if you want to have fish or a pet, first off, you should really learn what it takes to have take care of them properly. And catching fish in the wild for the aquarium trade is a huge problem. For one thing, you're removing those fish from the wild and putting them into an environment that can never match what they would have in the wild. So it's keeping animals in captivity for entertainment is wrong. There's actually a new documentary called The Dark Hobby about the problems with removing these fish from their natural habitats. And, they're also part of their ecosystem, of course. So then you're impacting the ecosystem, negatively impacting the ecosystems. So really, tropical fish are a big problem that they're taking from the wild. And even captive bred fish, the industry, there's so much needless suffering and death within it. Anytime you treat animals as a commodity, there's suffering and death. But if you are really interested in having companion fish and you can provide for them, give them a decent home, then we suggest you go to an animal shelter or a rescue group, or find someone who needs to rehome their fish for whatever reason. But please, just as with dogs and cats, don't buy them. Adopt, don't shop.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I actually honestly wouldn't have thought about adopting instead of shopping. Not that I'm thinking about getting fish, but I didn't realize that was an avenue.
Yes, there are many shelters will take in fish, and also there are fish rescue groups, different type of they're betta fish rescue groups, and goldfish rescue groups, koi, and just general fish rescue groups. They do exist. And lots of times, like if you go on Craigslist or something, you can see people who have fish who, for whatever reason, they can no longer take care of them, so you can adopt them instead.
Right, and this goes for if you want a koi pond or a pond outside that you want to put fish in.
Right.
What a great way, because I do know that there's some like homeowners who are moving and the new owners don't want, they don't want the pond, they don't want the fish. Now the real estate agents and like, oh, who wants these fish? And that they put it out on social media, because I've actually shared a post like that. It's like, I think it was a house in Asheville where the new owners just didn't want the fish in the pond, and just share and see if someone will take the animals so that they can have a new home.
Yeah, and it's something you really need to consider, because for example, goldfish, they can live for decades. So, there's these fairs where you can go and play a game and win a goldfish, and lots of kids will do that. But what they don't realize is, what they don't even think about is that, you shouldn't just keep them in a little bowl. That's really cruel to keep a fish in a bowl. For one thing, it's so barren, and you can't really put any kind of environmental enrichment in there. And also just the bowl shape keeps it from getting good oxygen exchange. So it's really harmful to keep a goldfish or a betta fish in a little bowl. So you need a tank, you need a substrate, gravel or something on the bottom. You need a filter, you need a heater. For a lot, like a tropical fish, needs to be kept at a certain temperature. And again, these fish can live for years, decades. And oftentimes they require veterinary care. And if you have an animal, you really are responsible for that animal and need to give it, proper care. So it's not just it's something that really, it takes foresight and forethought and planning.
Yeah, and they don't even think about that, I'm sure.
Just to follow up with what Mary's saying about these goldfish giveaways, they're so wrong. Because when you go to a county fair, you're not thinking about, I'm going to bring home an animal. You're just going to, eat some junk food and play some games and all that. And then you have this animal, and you're carrying them around all night in a little baggie, with a little bit of air and some water. Hopefully they make it home. And sometimes, sometimes you luck out into somebody who can take care of them. And, you hear about sometimes they will live a while. But quite often they're not prepared for them. They don't have the setup. And they'll dad will end up flushing them or dumping them in the water, and goldfish are part of the carp family, so they end up in the open waters. They breed with carp. They can live for like 20 years, and they can grow to several feet long, and they're ravenous eaters. Talk about messing up the local environment. They'll just destroy the environment. They'll eat turtle eggs. It really is like certain areas have banned the goldfish giveaways just because of environmental issues. And it's really tragic. It's like a cheap prize is what it is. So these people do it because it's cheaper than stuffed animals or wherever else they give away. And it's just a tragic thing. Yeah, we have a good flyer on the Fishville website about that, trying to encourage people to, if it's happening at your county fair, to call about it and, call the county commission or whoever is responsible for the fair and try and get it banned.
Thank you. that is something I feel like is very valuable for people to hear and to start recognizing. And of course, David said, please mention lobsters. They can't block pain. So
Yeah, like if most people when they cook a lobster, they'll boil them alive, which I mean is about the cruelest thing you can imagine doing to any sentient being. And there is compelling scientific evidence that lobsters also feel fear and pain, and their nervous system is set up so they don't go into shock like most animals would do. So they for the however long it takes for them to die, and it can be a while. It's not instantaneous. They're being boiled alive. I mean, it's just beyond inhumane. It's just an atrocity, really.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
absolutely
And there's a
horrendous.
group, Crustacean Compassion, which has a website and a lot of great scientific information about them.
Yeah, I highly recommend that people check that out. There's a story from my childhood. I don't believe I was alive yet, but I'm pretty sure it's my mom and maybe my grandmother were cooking lobster, and they put the lobsters in the oven. They didn't boil them, and they put the heat on the oven, but the lobsters ran around the oven because they just was just running around. And that's like a story that, I mean, that's an old story that I learned when I was growing up. And I'd never eaten, that never appealed to me ever. Seafood was never an appealing food to me. It was one of the easiest things for me to give up in when I was 18, 19 years old.
Well, a lot of people
Wow.
say I loved seafood. It was one of my favorite foods. I absolutely loved it. And a lot of people say it's the hardest thing to give up. But now there are so many terrific alternatives to it. There are vegan versions of virtually any kind of seafood you can imagine. There are lots of different commercial products available. On our website, we have hundreds of recipes. There are vegan seafood cookbooks. So, whatever you have a hankering for, there's a vegan version. It's better for us, certainly better for the other animals, and better for the environment. Just makes sense.
I thought
And
Howard
thank you,
was gonna.
David.
Yeah, I thought Howard was gonna. And Maywa out of New York City for any derivative, a plant-based derivative for fish. That's who to go
Maywa,
to.
right. Now there's Good Catch. They make a vegan tuna, and actually they've partnered with Bumblebee. So wherever Bumblebee sells their products, they're selling Good Catch tuna. So in your local grocery store, you can get Good Catch tuna, which is vegan tuna. Um, there's um,
Gardein has some great products.
Yes,
The
Gardein
crab
the
Gardein,
cakes,
fish, the fish
there's some
fillets.
fish
Yep, and the
fillets,
and the
yeah.
crab cakes.
Sophie's
Yep,
Kitchen. There's
Sophie's. Yep.
quite a variety, and more all the time. I mean, they're spending millions of dollars to develop more and more vegan seafood products. So, and again, like we said, there's hundreds of recipes, so you can easily make your own too.
Right. And a products page, so it lists all the different companies, which we just mentioned a few, but there's so many good products out there. So yeah, people should check out the products page on the Fishfield website just to see all the
Yeah.
different items that are out there to choose from.
Right,
And
and
if you serve it with cocktail sauce or tartar sauce, vegan, of course, and lemon, I mean, that's mainly the flavors that people are looking for. So, you can
Old
easily,
Bay, people like Old Bay, that's vegan.
yeah,
and of course, like frying it. If you
sure.
batter it
And
and you
breading it,
fry it, and you can easily do that vegan plant-based. You can eat. I mean,
And
right,
right.
dip it in margarine. You got the flavor you're looking for. Leave the animals alone.
right. You
Yeah.
can heat the mar. Now we're like going back to like it's like growing up. It's like I had a dad that would like eat this food and like it would just run down his arms and he'd have his bib on, and it's like a horrifying memory for me because I was just like, my dad is coated in food. I was like, that's so gross, and I wouldn't eat the food. I was like, I'm not eating that. And I was like, nope. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I do eat like Sophie's Kitchen is their crab cakes, the fish fillets that they have, absolutely delicious, and that's coming from someone who didn't like the flavor. I love vegan sushi. I search it out in the cities we travel to. Atlanta and in New Jersey have like some incredible options. Asheville, North Carolina has a great restaurant that has and more than just an avocado roll, avocado cucumber roll. I mean like talking like derivatives with the vegan fish and vegan crab and even like Beyond Meat roll down in Atlanta. I mean incredible, like so good. So mango and avocado. I mean, I know I'm hungry. It's like search it out. It's really you can do. We make it here. I make sushi like every few months. It's relatively easy to do. And
Oh
sushi,
yeah.
just so people know, people are like sushi. It's not fish. You veggies aren't fish. Well, actually, the definition of sushi is something laid over rice. It doesn't
Fermented
say
rice.
it's fish
Yeah.
laid over rice. It says something, a food laid over rice. So that could easily be avocado, a pineapple. It could be it could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a chain in New York called Beyond Sushi, and there you have like 6 or 7 restaurants now. It's so popular. And a lot of Asian restaurants will have different types of vegan sushi and other vegan seafood too.
Well,
Yep.
actually, a lot of grocery stores do. I mean, they're not, it's not like they make it for you right there, but I mean, quite a few grocery stores. There's one I just had 2 days ago, and they have different sushis, and they have a vegetarian. They almost always have a vegetarian sushi. So it's not hard to come by.
I know,
It's quite
yeah.
tasty.
And it's
Yeah.
delicious and it's not high calorie, it's not high fat, and depending on what you dip it in and what if there's vegan mayo. And fried food. Of course, it could be
Right.
tempura in it, but it's really I mean, yeah, it's actually probably one of my favorite foods is vegan
Yeah.
sushi.
And
It's
there's also Vegetarian Resource Group sells a book called Vegan Seafood Cookbook, and that has a lot of great vegan seafood recipes in it too.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Amelie, thank you, the two of you, for joining me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. If
I have
someone
to.
wanted to reach out to either of you, how would they do that? Just go to the website?
Sure. Our email address is info@fishfeel.org. You can also go to our website, fishfeel.org, and we're very active on Facebook. So Fishfeel on Facebook. And we'd love to communicate with you and discuss this further. And thank you so much for having us on, Helene. And we invite anyone to contact us who would like more information. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. I feel it's really important, and I'm trying to get environment and climate and animals to be more of a juicy topic than just health and food. And of course, we were able to easily bring food into this. So, because I mean, people, that's what one of the things that people don't really think about. They think about, I just want to eat. But it's very important to think about where your food comes from.
Definitely.
That's like
Definitely. Yeah.
like really important. So I really hope to see the two of you next year, like in person.
That would be great. Sure.
That would be
That
awesome.
would be
And do you
great.
have some
Yeah,
things?
I, I,
Go ahead.
I, I love the Raleigh Durham area. I spent a lot of months down there. Actually, last year I spent several months down there, and it's a great area, and there's some good vegan restaurants in the area, and absolutely. And then I actually spent a couple of months in Wilmington, North Carolina, which I love the whole beachy area. So yeah, we definitely want to come on down.
Yeah,
So
you should let me
so
know. You were like right here. We could have had dinner.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
definitely. I mean, I would love that. We do have some incredible restaurants, amazing food in the Triangle. Sometimes I go away and actually prefer the food that we have here at home over the food that we're traveling. I won't say what cities because that's not fair. But because there's like incredible food everywhere. But
Sure.
just
Yeah, if you
we
get up
very
to the
fortunate. Go
if you
ahead.
get up to the DC area, we want to take you out to some of the great vegan restaurants up here.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Shook is a favorite.
Yeah,
There's we love traveling and eating. It's a perk of
definitely.
running Vegfest. It's a really good perk of what we do on this
Well,
end.
thank you so much for doing that. It's such a great way to get out to the public, of course.
Thank you. And we have some
Yeah,
stuff that's like we're working on. I'll definitely be in touch to let you know for 2021 with the Plant Based Network because I'm the director of events. So
wonderful.
there's going to be stuff coming through our pipeline where the two of you could definitely be involved. And
That'd
I'll
be
just leave
terrific.
that little teaser for everybody out there. And of course, like as we work on it, we'll disseminate that information. Well, the two of you have a great rest of your night. And Howard, thank you for taking care of the dogs and helping them find homes and not be a meal. And also for caring for making sure people understand about fish and why they matter too.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, have a
Thank
good
you for
night.
having us.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Bye, guys.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and being a part of Virtual Vegfest Live, our Thursday edition. We are back on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the vegan meathead, Daniel Austin. He's a plant-built athlete. So you want to tune in for that because, he's a really cool guy. He's a lot of fun. You'll really like him. So in regards to what I end this with, you know what? You need to wear a mask. You need to wear a mask that goes over your nose and under your chin and not expose your nose because your nose is connected to your lungs just like your mouth is. And if you don't protect your nose, then you could get COVID. And you don't want that. So make sure when you go out, you wear your mask, you social distance, you're kind, you take care of one another because when we are able to get back together in person and we get through this winter of COVID, I want to be able to have a spring and see people and, summer, next fall. We want to be able to do stuff outside of just virtually. But again, thank you to Crafters Organic for sponsoring a Virtual Vegfest Live and to Mary and Howard for joining us today. And we will see you on Saturday at 4. And go subscribe to Virtual Vegfest YouTube and watch our social media for our contests. How you can win a prize bag from Hodo Foods, Follow Your Heart, Orgain, and Crafters Organic. Simple as that. And also, for every $1 that you donate to Pass the Buck campaign, which is Triangle Vegfest this year, it's up on our website, virtualvegfest.com, which you can also go shop all our vendors. You'll get entered into a prize to win a prize bag from Orgain, which is really cool. We got a new flyer for it, too. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you on Saturday.